Here it goes again, goes. Oh, here it goes again. So what are we talking about today, my dear children? Well, I'll tell you. Today, we will be discussing the finest trope in all of horror history.
In horror, she's everything. The final girl stereotype is almost as hard to kill off as the actual killer, and I totally respect that about her.
Couldn't have said that better myself. I know that typically people do top 10 lists, and those probably get a lot more clicks here on YouTube, but I am not the type of person to limit myself. I have 50 amazing women that I want to talk about today. I would not be able to live with myself if I didn't include each and every one of them on this list. And even with that, I'm sure that there will be some that I miss. I don't think that I have a single final girl from a TV show to talk about today, so that might be its own video. And of course, there are many amazing final boys in horror as well, but that will be a separate video, babes. Also, I might be playing it a little bit fast and loose with the term final girl, but that's because all the girls on this list are survivors. They all make it to the end of their movies. So frankly, I don't care if they're the only one that made it or not. So we really mustn't dilly nor dally today. To kick it off with number 50 would be Rebecca from Lights Out. I love a good big sister moment. I really do. I think I really connect with that because I myself have an older sister, and we just have each other's backs. I love a good familial moment. Plus, that is one of the scariest villains of all time in Lights Out. I'm sorry, that movie still scares me to this day. Plus Charlie, oh, Bella Dad, I want you really bad. He's in the opening of that movie as well. If you haven't seen it, you should. Honestly, Rebecca maybe could have been higher up, but this list was really hard to make. It's like, why did I even decide to try to do this to myself and put all these amazing women up against each other? Well, listen, if they weren't fictional, I wouldn't do this because they're all amazing. And Rebecca's a badass. Like, she could have been higher up on this list. Whatever. This is an ever-changing, ever-flowing list from, you know, however often I rewatch these movies, etc. So at an arbitrary number 49 would be Tina Shepherd from Friday the 13th Part 7. I don't know why I always stumble on Friday the 13th. It comes out of my mouth really fast, but I feel like it's weird to slow it down and be like, Friday the 13th. So it always sounds just like a little bit off when I say it. Anyways, the reason why she made it so low but is still on this list is because I love her final battle with Jason. It's so badass. Don't drink every time that I say badass. I gotta try to watch myself. But also for majority of the movie, she's kind of like whiny and she's coming into these amazing powers, but she's just like, it's so hard to be me. So that's why she's not higher up, but her battle with Kane Hodder Jason, c'est magnifique. At number 48 would be Jay from It Follows. She made it onto this list, but rather low because it's not that she did anything super fantastic, but it's just the very fact of what she had to deal with. And maybe by that logic, Rebecca should definitely be higher up on this list. That might come up multiple times, I fear. But anyway, what she had to deal with, I think, is far more existential. There are far less solutions to her scenario, so I do think it is fair she made it above Rebecca, actually. Plus that acting performance, oh, fantastic. Hello, okay, I'm so sorry because somehow my eyes just simply glazed over Michelle from 10 Cloverfield Lane. I don't know why, it was a long list. I'm not wearing my glasses when I film my videos and stuff, so I missed it. I'm sorry, please forgive me. But she's an amazing final girl. The things she goes through, I would have suffered a panic attack from the claustrophobia on day one, but she's dope, has a great character arc, all around an amazing final girl. I'm so sorry, Michelle. I'm so sorry that I forgot about you. Mwah, mwah. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I love you. Mwah. At number 46, I almost didn't include her, but I had to. It's my girl Dani from Midsommar. Now, I know she's low, but Midsommar is a movie that I consider to be perfect. It's one of the few movies that I give a perfect rating. I just love Dani so much, and I know that people are like, well, it's not really a good for her kind of a moment because, like, she ended up in a cult, okay? I hear you, I do, but honestly, if I was confronted with that situation, I would probably also join that cult. I know that they kill people, but they also seem so cool and nice. And Dani just also went through the absolute most, and you know what? Yes, she's in a cult, but she made it through to the other side. So you can't take that away from me. You can't take her off this list. It's my list. This next one's gonna make some people a little bit mad. But that would be Nancy Thompson from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Look, there are just a handful of really iconic final girls that don't really resonate with me. Because I don't really love her character until the third act of the movie when she starts to really get it together and she goes after Freddy. Also, to be fair, I've only seen Dream Warriors one time and I thought it was only okay. She just doesn't connect with me that much. I'm sorry, I don't really know what to say. So I know that I have an unpopular opinion, I'm sorry, but that's where Nancy Thompson is gonna live. Up next at number 44 would be Erin Harson from You're Next. This might also be another curious one as to why she is so low on the list, because she is clearly iconic. However, I have said this before about her, I just don't love that they gave her character the background of having grown up on a survival compound, because all the stuff that she does, aside from maybe setting some traps, any other woman could do. So I don't love that. I don't think that you need to have a character who grew up on a survival compound to be that badass. No, stop. No more badass. I'm gonna limit myself. I can say it 5 more times. Who am I kidding? I'm not gonna keep track of that. So while her actions might warrant a place higher up on this list, she just doesn't do it for me. Up next at number 43 would be Gretel from Gretel and Hansel. Her character was consistent and amazing throughout the entirety of that movie. I adore that movie to death, one of my favorite folk horror movies of all time probably. And I don't want to spoil too much about the plot, but I think that I love her so much because of her willingness to help other people. However, it is not a very action-heavy movie, so for that reason, she is further down. At number 42 would be Mia Allen from the Evil Dead remake in 2013. Now, she is on this list not because I love her as a character, but just the sheer amount of fuckery that this girl endured. This girl was going through withdrawals, and then she was very disturbingly possessed. She suffered 3rd-degree burns, a seizure, her arm got chopped off. Like, truly has possibly gone through the most. I just don't really love her as a character, and so that's why she's so far down. But you'd be pretty hard-pressed to think of another final girl who went through all of that. So anyway, at number 41 would be Sarah Carter from The Descent. This is a good movie, not a great movie, but it is one that I do rewatch every couple years. Again, this girlie just went through way too much. I think she resonates with me so much because the situation of The Descent being trapped in caves beneath the earth, nope, nope. Coupled with what happens to them in those caves and what ends up coming after them. She is better than me. I would not have made it out of that, so she's earned her place on this list. At number 40 would be Jamie Lloyd from Halloween 4, 5, and 6. But really mostly from Halloween 4 because I do not like Halloween 5, and then Halloween 6 is a real mess. So the reason why she's here, she's one of the only non-women to be on this list, and honestly I think it's kind of because of Danielle Harris, because she was so young in this role and was out acting almost everybody else in the cast. And to be a child in the mix of everything happening with Michael, are you joking? Certified child icon. Moving on to the 30s of this list, at 39 would be Erin from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. It's funny that you can't ever spoil who the final girl will be in any early 2000s remake because they're all wearing the same outfit. But I've mentioned that before, you already know this. Anyway, I feel like she doesn't get enough credit because maybe she's kind of overshadowed by Sally, who is the original from that franchise. But she is so smart, she's so crafty, she's so good at hiding. She's also quite violent, like that girl took off Leatherface's arm, which no other final girl in that franchise has done. So kudos to Erin. I'm sorry that they made you get wet in almost every single scene, but you know, you did well with what you had. Put Jessica Biel in more horror movies. Anyways, at number 38, speaking of the final girl outfit, we have Carly from the House of Wax remake in 2005. I really like Carly. Again, this is another instance where it's like, did you see all the stuff that girl went through? I like her attitude. I like her as a character. I feel like I connect with her. She has to deal with all these annoying, dumb people around her and her brother who is like, oh, I'm the evil twin. But at the end of the day, she gets through it, damn it. Maybe she didn't go through quite as much as Mia Allen, but she had her lips super glued shut, and that's enough for me. Anyway, moving on to number 37, which would be Sally Hardesty from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Again, it might be a little like, ooh, why is she not higher up on your list? To be fair, yes, what she went through is horrific and not really comparable to a lot of things, but at the end of the day, the most she really had to do is run. She spent a lot of time running away. She fought her way out of the dinner scene, and that was good, but like for the most part, she's running. That girl's she's just on her feet, you know? But I love her. She's an original icon, one of the original final girls. She just doesn't really have that much character, so she's down here. At number 36 would be Kirsty Cotton from Hellraiser, or is it Christy? No, I think it's Kirsty. Again, what did this girl go through, okay? Who was she dealing with? Hypersexual weirdos from another dimension, right? Have you ever dealt with that? Because I haven't. But she said, I see your dom subculture and I raise you me. So that's why I love Kirsty. I feel like she's a little bit overlooked as a final girl. At number 35 would be Ginny from Friday the 13th Part 2. There it is again, the Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th. This is my first glass, I swear to God, I'm sorry. She's a badass. Not only does she physically fight, but she also uses some psychological tools, and they did a really good job setting her up in the beginning of the movie. They're like, oh yeah, she's getting her specialty in like child psychology or whatever. And I feel like that's the most work that Friday the 13th has ever put into one of their final girls. And you gotta love Ginny. I think everybody loves Ginny. Now at number 34, I can't even tell you their name because I feel like this is a much more underrated movie, but it's called What Keeps You Alive. I don't want to say literally anything more than that, but I couldn't not put that movie on this list. Don't watch the trailer. It ruins the best twist of the movie. I went into this blind and oh my God, it's such a blast. Also so underrated, also LGBTQ come through. This genre has always been gay, but we love an overtly gay moment in horror. This is a safe space. You can trust me. Just go in blind and watch the movie. I think it's on Netflix US right now. At number 33 would be Tara from Scream 5. Now that is because this girl, as mentioned in the movie, basically just became a pincushion and she was still beating ass. She's in a wheelchair. Oh, who cares? She grabs the phone off the wall and she chucks it. She's on crutches. Who cares? She uses her crutch to beat Ghostface. And she's just this tiny little person. If that's not empowering, then I don't know what is. Moving on to number 32, which would be Rachel from Halloween 4. Oh. It's first class, I swear to God. And also this is just apple juice, what? Again, it's the big sister energy, I really love it. The fact that they're not even biological siblings, but she took in Jamie. I think this means a lot to me as somebody who is also adopted, because my sister is my sister. Blood does not matter. We choose our families, and I love that her character had that kind of an element to it. Just a good person all around, you know? At number 31 would be Beverly Marsh from It and It Chapter 2. I love both versions of Beverly, probably equally. I would specify maybe more so from It Chapter 2 because of the kind of life that she ended up living and had to escape from in order to make her way back to Derry. Just very real world issues. It hit really close to home even though I, haven't lived a life like that. But it takes an incredibly strong person to get out of such a relationship like that. And so I'm always just, oh yes, Bev. And her ultimately getting the life and love that she deserved. You just love to see it. Now coming in at number 30, we actually do have another non-adult on this list, and that would be Coraline. I don't care what that movie is rated, it's made for adults and it is terrifying. I love Coraline to death. The things that she did, if I were a child, I could literally never. Dealing with Spider-Mom and the ghost kids and having the weight on her conscience of having to win this game and free the spirits of these dead children. Are you actually joking? Plus she had to save her parents? No. I could never, and that's a reason why a lot of these women ended up on this list, because I personally I couldn't imagine. So bravo, Coraline. I feel so fancy today with my little wine glass and my nails. Ooh. At number 29, we have another kind of overlooked girly, and that would be Stella Olsen from 30 Days of Night. I love Melissa George. She is also a pretty underrated actress, especially in horror, and if you guys haven't seen Triangle, you definitely should. Plus, she's also in that Amityville Horror remake from 2005 with Ryan Reynolds. She is an underrated horror queen. But in 30 Days of Night, I have never seen vampires who looked like that, and the fact that they're in this Arctic town where it's dark for 30 days, even that alone, just darkness and snow for 30 days straight, I could actually never. But then she's also having to deal with these vampires in this town, and it's like, enough is enough. But she makes it out because she's sick as hell. So while that's not really a favorite movie, I wouldn't call it great. It's good, and I think it's definitely worth a one-time watch. Up next, we have another Nancy on this list, and that would be Blake Lively's character from The Shallows. This is one of the few good shark movies out there. There really aren't too many of them. And yes, it's cheesy. The ending is it's a bit much. But the things she does, the things she goes through, the things she witnesses, it's unfathomable to me. She is stuck on that rock for the entire movie, and that's insane. And she's got to deal with this shark that just seems to have a real personal issue with her. I think there's a lot that kind of compounds to make her a really admirable final girl in my opinion. She's really smart. She's like a nursing school dropout. She's dealing with this fatal injury for like the entire movie and she only keeps getting more of them. She befriends a bird, like come on now. Plus she's stuck on a rock in the middle of the ocean for days. She's dealing with this giant shark. She deserves the accolades. And you know who else does? Number 27 on this list, who is Maddie from Hush. Give us more disabled final girls, please. I'm bummed to say that Nika is not gonna make it on this list. She's just not a favorite of mine, but at least we have Maddie here. I mean, it's just an amazing movie, like the way that they played with sound and her being deaf I think is incredible, but the ways that the movie showcased her ability to use that to her advantage, to be wicked smart and outsmart this asshole that broke into her home, again, you just love to see it. So tense too. I think one of the most frightening and tense movies maybe on this list. Up next, I couldn't really choose between these women, but we have the Fear Street Girls. They're just insanely well-rounded for what they were able to accomplish. For one thing as well, they're gay. But number two, they had to physically fight off a very wide variety of people. Number three, they were dealing with both paranormal and human adversaries. Number five, they uncovered some very disturbing history and they broke this terrible curse. So they just accomplished so much. How am I meant to really choose between them? I'll tell you how, I'm not gonna. So at number 25, we have Alice from A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5. She is also painfully overlooked in my opinion. I just feel like the Dream Master overall is pretty overlooked. Like there is not enough love for that movie and the insane practical effects that they accomplished. There's also a documentary that you can watch here on YouTube and it's just incredible. But she's awesome. She's really strong-willed. She's just this like very normal person that got sucked into this crazy circumstance. And I don't know exactly what it is that makes her so likable, but I'm just very drawn to Alice. But moving on to number 24, and that would be Dana from Slumber Party Massacre 2021. A lot of people don't even know that this remake exists, but there you go. She just doesn't have time for bullshit. The way that she deals with the killer and with the men and even some of the other women in this movie, I'm like, yes! And she's a little bit of a caricature, but I find this movie's comedy to work really well. And she's also queer-coded, and I obviously have a soft spot for the gays. Because I am a gays. At number 23 would be Jess from the original Black Christmas. I love Jess so much because she's just so subtle and straightforward with her intentions. Peter's complaining that she's gonna have an abortion, and she's like, I don't really care what you think. She's just like, there's nothing to talk about here. So you see what I mean? It's subtle, but it's straightforward. She knows what she wants, and she's not gonna let a man's opinion sway her. And it's not that she did too much physical fighting. She did kill somebody, to be fair. But it's really just her personality. Like, she's an OG feminist icon. So not much more to say there, but I have to say there are spoilers for Fresh coming up, so skip to this timestamp if you haven't seen Fresh. But at number 22 would be Noah. This girl bit a man's dick off. Like, I don't know how you solidify your place on this list any better than that. So I truly don't have anything more to say about her. At number 21 would be Laurie Strode from Halloween. But yes, I want to clarify that I am talking about the current Laurie Strode, not just Laurie from the original. I think I have to say that because if I was only talking about Laurie from the original, she would not be this high up on the list. I'm sorry. Again, she's just one of those classic final girls that I don't connect with that much until we see her in Halloween 2018. She becomes a much more well-rounded character, and the way that she sets those traps and she goes after Michael with her giant gun, that's what I love to see. She's kind of drawing a bit of that personality from a couple other final girls that are much higher up on the list that we'll talk about in a bit. I feel like that's the only other one on this list that might have people a little bit in a tizzy. But at number 20, again, I want to give a spoiler warning for Better Watch Out. So if you don't want to know who the final person is in Better Watch Out, then go ahead and skip to this timestamp right here. But Ashley from Better Watch Out, this girl is better than me. She also practically died, but then in the very end, she's like, psych, I'm alive, and you are gonna pay for this, you little shit-ass little boy. Dealing with an adult man who has ego issues is one thing, but to deal with a preteen who has them? Oh, no. I just love that movie so much. It's so underrated, and maybe that's kind of like a bias that's seeping in, but the fact that she's dealing with this egomaniacal child, like, that speaks speaks volumes. So moving on to number 19, that would be Allison from the new Halloween trilogy. Watch this video just age terribly if she ends up dying in Halloween Ends, but she's got a great attitude. Sometimes she's a little bit too hot-headed and she thinks she can do these things, but you just can't, Nemo. But darn it, she still tries her very best. Not to mention she has an incredible scream. I don't really know what it is about it, but like she finds her friend dead, she breaks her leg. And it's music to my ears. I don't know why. Of course I know why. We horror fans love a good scream. So that is affecting her place on this list a little bit. She is a certified scream queen. But moving on to number 18, that would be Sarah from My Bloody Valentine. Again, kind of an overlooked final girl, but she was going through it. I love the drama of that original My Bloody Valentine so much. It just feels so realistic, like that love triangle, and this poor girl is having to deal with these two awful men that just like love her, I guess. They have a real funny way of showing it though, don't they? There's also a moment where she's with her friend down in the mines and her friend's boyfriend has just been slain. So obviously her friend is a mess, but Sarah is like, girl, get yourself together. And she really keeps things moving along and she like keeps people alive. So in my opinion, she's kind of overlooked, especially considering she was dealing with like a lot of emotional turmoil on top of everything else going on. But on to number 17 would be Crystal Creasy from The Hunt. Yes, another new generation final girl. For me, I think what really did it is just the fact that she spends the whole movie outsmarting these wealthy assholes. They all get what's coming to them, but most of all, what solidified her place on this list is her fight with Hilary Swank. I don't remember the character's name, but just to see these two women going at it, it was music to my eyes. Wait, that's not right, but it still makes sense, doesn't it? I love a final girl who can fight like that. The Hunt isn't a masterpiece. I actually haven't even revisited it since I saw it in theaters, but I have it on Blu-ray and I've kind of been itching to rewatch it. And the main reason really is because of this woman. But anyways, on to number 16, maybe not a conventional final girl, but that would be Clarice from The Silence of the Lambs. You would be hard-pressed to find another woman on this list who had to deal with a man like Hannibal Lecter. I just really relate to Clarice. I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like I too would have been charmed by Hannibal Lecter. I too kind of feel like my morality would be stripped apart. That movie exposed a lot of moral gray area that I feel like, you know, investigative sheriffs or the FBI, whatever, those kind of people deal with. And Clarice is just really relatable. And again, she's this whole badass in a tiny package. And I couldn't deal with a sociopathic cannibal. So all that being said, I think it's fair we move on to number 15, which would be Sarah Connor from the Terminator franchise. Now, the reason why she's not higher up on this list is because I really only count her from Terminator 2, because her from the original movie and from Dark Fate, I'm not in love with. But in the second movie, when she gets all jacked and she's protecting her son and she has to reckon with the fact that this Terminator is now a good guy and on her side, she deals with so much, both physically and emotionally. And it's like she just doesn't even let any of that affect her. She's like, I need to protect my son, and that is the job that I am here to do. Here I go again. The familial relationships, they just mean a lot to me. At number 14, we have a similar woman that I'm surprised didn't make it higher up on my list, but that would be Ripley from Alien. We have the obvious reasons why she's so high up. She dealt with the perfect predator, and she was able to outsmart it and blow that bitch out into space. All the respect to Ripley. And then of course she's in the following 3 movies, but I don't know, the original is really the only one that resonates with me. I know that everybody says that Aliens is one of the few sequels that's better than the original movie. Agree to disagree, okay? I spilled, but it's okay. She also is just so good about keeping her head about her. She's surrounded by all these people who don't have as good of judgment as her. Plus her relationship with the cat, with Jonesy, right? That's another thing you love to see. But also at the end of the day, her being so like unyielding and us not really seeing too much of who she is as a character, that holds her back just a little bit from me ranking her higher on this list. Because I don't feel like I connect with her quite as much as some of these other ladies. For instance, at number 13, lucky 13, would be Ellie Sattler from Jurassic Park. Maybe some people don't consider her to be a final girl. I don't care. I consider Jurassic Park to be a horror movie. Again, another subtle feminist icon. I bring up this conversation from that movie all the time, but she's speaking with the owner of the park who's like, well, shouldn't we wait for this man to go and like reset the power breakers or whatever? And she's like, haha, that's very funny. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go ahead and go do that. She doesn't have time for that gender role shit. shit. She's gotta go get stuff done. And that's one of the main reasons why I love her. That plus the fact that she is so compassionate with these animals, the dinosaurs. She's also not afraid to get her hands dirty. She shoves her whole arm in a pile of shit. And these are just the kind of things that I look for in my final girls. At number 12 though would be Renee Lambert from Insidious Part 2. Now in Part 1, yes, she's still great, but in Part 2, she goes through the absolute most. I don't think that any other woman on this list has to deal with their husband being possessed by an evil dead human, so she's worrying about dealing with him plus protecting her 2 young sons. And the only other people at her side are these really goofy paranormal investigators. That and Josh's mom, like her boy's grandma, so she doesn't have much in her arsenal. She's kind of handling things on her own. Also, my bias comes in because I just love Insidious Chapter 2 so much. It's my favorite of the entire franchise, even more than Part 1. And I think she's kind of underrated because, like, yeah, she's not a soul survivor, but she is a final girl. At number 11 would be Rachel from The Ring. I love how smart Rachel is. I love the lengths that she is willing to go to for her journalism. I also love the arc that she goes through with her son and them kind of like learning to be more close. And then after fulfilling that arc, the lengths that she is willing to go to protect her family. These are the things that I really love to see because I love when a woman can go through so much, but I also can latch onto her character. And Rachel is just a prime example of that. And then also The Ring is kind of like my favorite horror movie of all time. Well, it's one of them, and more on that later. But you're gonna start to sense a theme here really quick because the next one on my list, we're in the top 10 now actually. At number 10 would be Kyle from Child's Play 2. And yes, she does come back for the TV show and we still adore her. But Kyle in Child's Play, again, it's just that older sister thing. I love a good older sister moment. The lengths that she was willing to go to for this young boy Andy, who she had just met, like she was absolutely tossed into this mess and she just embraced it. Like stealing a car, being confronted by a police officer, and ultimately defeating Chucky. She did all that. And at the end of the day, she was kind of doing all of that for Andy. So I don't know what it is. It's some kind of internal bias that I have for sister relationships, but there she is. She's number 10. At number 9 would be Adelaide from Us. The familial theme, it just keeps coming back up. She's a mom and she will stop at nothing to protect her babies. That and the fact that her story is so complex with her and Red. Now morally, there might be a little bit of a tightrope that we're walking here, but her level of fight, her compassion for her family, there is something to be said about that, and that really spoke to me. At number 8 would be Cecilia from The Invisible Man. Another painfully overlooked final girl. Oh my god, she went through the absolute most. Now maybe she wasn't fighting an alien with acidic blood, but this girl was psychologically tortured to about no end. And to me, that's worse. When the threat is external, that is something I feel like, you know, maybe physically I can't deal with it, maybe I would die, but at least I wouldn't lose my mind. My mind is something that I cherish. My mental health is something that I struggle to like work on, and I work on it every single day. I feel like that can be said for a lot of people, and the psychological elements of The Invisible Man were just, they were a little bit too much sometimes. But like in the best way, it's basically a perfect movie. So to me, the fact that she got through that means a little bit more to me than Ripley blowing an alien out into space. At number 7, jumping back into that familial theme, would be Evelyn Abbott from A Quiet Place. Also again, like yes, she's a mother and the things she does for her kids we love to see, but also the fact that this woman was pregnant in a world where you couldn't make noise. She had a nail go through her foot, she went through labor, she lost her husband. Like what has this woman not been through? And of course that is amplified by Emily Blunt's performance. She is fantastic. Oh, I didn't even mention the grief of losing her third child. It's just another one of those movies where everything she goes through just, it compounds. There are so many different factors at play. Physical danger, protecting family, the grief. I could talk about that woman for ages, but we should probably move on. At number 6 would actually be Tree from Happy Death Day. Now this really just has to do with character alone. Like yes, she went through the whole Groundhog Day thing of being murdered over and over and over, and that would probably be hard to deal with, but just Tree herself, her whole character arc is something that I really respect, and her just generally not taking shit and her being really smart and figuring everything everything out while being able to take a hefty punch, the punch being, you know, being killed over and over. That is something that I really respect, and also I love that movie. I love dark comedies, and so there's definitely a bias there. But now I say that we move on to my top 5 final girls of all time. At number 5 would be Sidney Prescott from the Scream franchise, of course. Now what can I say about Miss Sidney? To be very honest, she would not make it this high up on the list if it was not for Scream 5. Her character development by Scream 5, I adore. She had already kind of made it there by like Scream 3 and definitely by Scream 4, but by Scream 5, when she has a family, she has children, she has absolutely no time for any of these antics. But she also has absolutely no hesitation putting herself into that danger to end things once and for all. It was really just her attitude in Scream 5. I'm like, yes. So Scream 5 really solidified Sidney as one of my absolute favorites. At number 4, of course, would be Gale Weathers, also from Scream. Look, I know that it's kind of an unpopular opinion, but while it takes Sidney a little while to get there, Gale is one of the strongest women just right off the bat. Yes, she has to go through the character arc of learning what it means to actually have empathy for other human beings, but never at any point is she not the strongest woman on screen. Now by Scream 5, obviously Sidney catches up to her, but Gale just always had the advantage of being a little bit older than Sidney, having a little bit more life experience, and it's hard to say, like I can't really tell you exactly what it is, but I just love Gale. Maybe I identify with her as more of a career woman. I think that was really nice representation to see back in the 90s, but horror has always been one of the most progressive genres, huh? Anyway, I know that that might cause a little bit of a rift in the comments section, but let me know, are you more Team Gale or more Team Sidney? Okay, now we are on to my top 3 favorite final girls of all time. Now at number 3, I have to stress I don't want to spoil Last Night in Soho, so hopefully you have seen it. If not, again, skip ahead. But at number 3 would be Sandy from Last Night in Soho. Maybe this doesn't technically count because she kind of died in the very end of the movie, but I'm talking about young Sandy, okay? Anya Taylor-Joy Sandy. Please don't get mad at me because of a technicality, and also don't get mad at me because she's a murderer and I'm putting a murderer at my top 3 final girls of all time. Listen, the men that she was killing, they were absolute predators. And I'm not saying that anybody in this earth deserves to die, but who's gonna be sad about those men losing their lives? Not me. And of course I was completely hypnotized by her dancing and all her different outfits, the costumes, ugh, and her singing. Wow. Oh shit, my wine! Okay, yeah, sorry, fine. Maybe it's a bias, maybe it's just recency bias as well. This could always change, but it's my list, so leave me alone. At number 2, this might be a little bit controversial, but that would be Tiffany from the Child's Play franchise. Now, I know what you're gonna say. She is also a killer, so maybe she doesn't really count, but let's not neglect the fact that she has been trapped in this super abusive relationship for the better part of 30 years, and despite all accounts, despite her also killing people, she is a survivor. Surviving Charles Lee Ray in all his forms over all these years makes her a final girl, and I don't want to hear a word against it. Her attitude, Jennifer Tilly, the acting, the character, it's one of the strongest characters, I would say, in horror history. Like, name a more recognizable voice. Name a more recognizable female killer. Name a more iconic horror couple. You can't. Yes, she's not a conventional final girl, but damn it, she has earned her spot on this list. Now at number 1, my personal number 1 favorite final girl of all time. I must stress this is not based on her experience, the things she went through, the things she had to overcome. She is just my personal favorite character who happens to be a final girl of all time. And that would be Grace from Ready or Not. Maybe you could see this coming. If you're a sub of mine, you know that Ready or Not is like my favorite horror movie of all time. But Grace, I think I love her so much because she's just such a normal person. And then she was thrown into this situation where these rich people were trying to take advantage of her entire life. Like they were gonna kill her to perpetuate their own wealth. And the fact that she bested every single one of them, that speaks volumes. And I would be lying if her punching a child did not factor into her being one of my favorites. That is the peak of comedy. Literally nothing will ever be funnier than that. My top 3 final girls are gonna be a little bit controversial, especially for my reasoning. Whatever, it's my list. So doing that cute little gag at the end of the video unfortunately left a bit of black lipstick on my chin for the remainder of the video, but Luckily, we got to the end before this blunder happened. And if you know me, you know I also love a good Eat the Rich story. And I can recognize my bias, okay? Yes, it's my favorite horror movie of all time. I recognize that is an issue. But I did my best, okay? I had 50 amazing women that I had to rank. This was quite a task. And I know that you guys probably won't put your top 50 in the comments, but I'd love to see like at least your top 5. So sound off down below, and also please let me know who I missed, because I know that I had to have missed some people, and it breaks my heart. Like, I really did my best, and I have 50 amazing women here. But even this list won't come close to covering all of the amazing final girls who have been written across horror history. So please, I am dying to know your favorites and whoever I missed down below. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. Thank you for making this possible and funding this channel. If you'd like to support me and see some bonus content, that will be linked down below. I just recently started this series of bonus content over on my Patreon, where I post my initial thoughts of a movie as soon as I get out of the movie theater. There's one for X, and there is also one for Morbius. And if you're also interested, I did cover the like Will Smith, Chris Rock situation, as well as some other fun bonus content. So if you would like to see all that, that'll be linked down below. Down there, you can also find all of my social media, my horror Instagram, travel Instagram, etc., etc. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope I catch you in the next one. Bye! Ugh. So you're gonna click one of these videos or what?